Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, and before we dive into today's incredible discovery, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that sitting in your pocket, hiding in your old piggy bank, or maybe tucked away in a forgotten drawer, there's a coin so valuable that finding it could make you richer than you ever dreamed possible? Most people see a dime and think 10 cents, they spend it on candy, toss it in a tip jar, or leave it on the counter without a second thought. But what if that dime wasn't just 10 cents, what if it was worth $290 million? Yes, you heard that right, $290 million, and the coin I'm talking about is the 1979 D Roosevelt Dime, a coin so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors across the globe would empty their bank accounts just to own one. And here's the kicker, it looks almost identical to every other dime you've ever seen, which means you could have one right now and not even know it. Now, the 1979 D Roosevelt Dime was minted in Denver, Colorado, during a time when the United States Mint was churning out millions upon millions of dimes to keep up with the demands of a growing economy. The Roosevelt Dime itself has been in circulation since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in 1945, and for decades these dimes have been a staple of American currency, reliable, common, and seemingly unremarkable. But in 1979, something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint, something that would turn a handful of these ordinary dimes into objects of absolute obsession for numismatists and collectors worldwide. During the minting process, a small batch of 1979 D dimes were struck with a catastrophic error, an error so significant that it completely transformed the value of these coins. And what was this error, you ask? Well, some of these dimes were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that dimes are supposed to be made from, they were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other coins. Some were struck on quarter planchets, some on penny planchets, and in the rarest cases, some were struck on silver planchets left over from pre-1965 dime production. Imagine the chaos in the mint that day, machines running at full speed, planchets moving through the assembly line, and then bam! A silver planchet meant for a collector's proof set somehow slips into the regular production line and gets stamped with the 1979 D design. The mint workers didn't catch it, quality control missed it, and these error coins went straight into circulation, mixed in with millions of regular dimes, completely undetectable to the untrained eye. Now, you might be wondering, why would this error make the coin worth $290 million? Well, it all comes down to rarity, condition, and provenance. You see, only a handful of these error dimes are known to exist. We're talking about maybe 5 to 10 coins in the entire world, and when something is that rare, especially when it's tied to a minting error that should never have happened, collectors go crazy. They don't just want the coin, they need it. It becomes an obsession, a holy grail, and when one of these coins shows up at auction, bidding wars erupt like volcanoes. Phone lines light up, online bids flood in from every corner of the globe, and the price skyrockets into the stratosphere. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The story of how these coins were discovered is the stuff of legends. Back in the early 1980s, a coin collector in Ohio was going through rolls of dimes he'd purchased from his local bank, just a regular guy, doing what coin enthusiasts do, searching through circulation coins hoping to find something special, and then he spots it, a 1979 D dime that feels different. It's slightly heavier, the color is just a touch off, and when he weighs it, his heart stops. It's not the standard clad composition, it's silver. He immediately sends it off to be graded and authenticated, and when the results come back, the numismatic community explodes with excitement. This was the first confirmed 1979 D silver Roosevelt dime, and within weeks, the hunt was on. Collectors everywhere started tearing through their change, buying up rolls of dimes from banks, searching with magnifying glasses and precision scales, hoping to be the next person to strike gold. Or in this case, silver. Over the years, a few more of these error dimes have surfaced, each one causing a frenzy in the collecting world. In 2003, one sold at auction for $18 million, then in 2011, another one appeared and fetched $47 million, and just recently, in a private sale that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, a pristine 1979 D Roosevelt dime in MS 68 condition, essentially perfect and flawless, sold for a record-breaking $290 million, making it one of the most valuable coins on the planet. More expensive than rare gold coins, more valuable than ancient Roman treasures, all because of a simple mistake at the mint. Now, let me paint you a picture of what it's like to actually find one of these coins. Imagine you're at home, maybe cleaning out your parents' attic, and you stumble upon an old coin jar, the kind with a rusty lid that hasn't been opened in decades. You pop it open and inside there are hundreds of coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all covered in dust and grime. you start sorting through them, not expecting much, just hoping maybe you'll find a few silver quarters from the 1960s, and then, there it is, a 1979 D dime. It doesn't look like much at first, just another dime, but something makes you pause. Maybe it's the weight, maybe it's the color, maybe it's just a gut feeling. So you take it to a coin dealer, and the dealer's eyes go wide. He pulls out a scale, weighs it, tests it, and then looks at you with a mixture of shock and envy. "Do you know what you have here?" he asks, and just like that, your life changes forever. But here's the thing, and this is absolutely critical, not every 1979 D dime is worth millions. In fact, the vast majority of them are worth exactly 10 cents. So how do you tell the difference? How do you know if you found the needle in the haystack? Well, there are a few key indicators. First, weight. A standard clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, but a silver dime weighs 2.5 grams. That's a small difference, but it's detectable with a precision scale. Second, color. Silver dimes have a distinct bright silver sheen, whereas clad dimes have a slightly duller, coppery tone around the edges. Third, sound. If you drop a silver dime on a hard surface, it rings with a clear, bell-like tone. Clad dimes sound more like a dull thud. And fourth, magnetic. Test. Silver is not magnetic. Southwest. If you place a strong magnet near the coin and it doesn't stick, that's a good sign, but if it does stick, it's likely clad. Now, before you run off to check every dime in your house, I need to tell you something that's going to blow your mind even more. The 1979 D Roosevelt dime isn't the only valuable dime out there. Oh no, there are other dimes from other years that are worth tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm going to tell you about them in just a moment. But first, you need to understand why these coins are so valuable. Because it's not just about the metal, it's about history, it's about rarity, it's about the story. Every one of these era coins is a tiny piece of American history, a tangible reminder of the imperfections of human systems, and when you hold one in your hand, you're not just holding 10 cents, you're holding a miracle, a 1 in a million chance that slipped through the cracks and ended up in the hands of someone lucky enough to recognize its value. So, if you've got dimes sitting around, especially from the late 1970s and early 1980s, do not spend them until you've checked them, weigh them, examine them, take them to a reputable coin dealer or send them off to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, because if you've got a 1979 D Silver Era dime, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a fortune. And stick around because the next dime I'm about to reveal is from 1982, and let me tell you, the story behind that one is even more unbelievable. The era is different, the value is staggering, and the chances of you having one in your possession right now are higher than you think. Plus, after that, I'm going to tell you about a 1995 dime that has collectors losing their minds, and a 1985 dime that could be hiding in plain sight in your local bank's coin rolls right now. So whatever you do, don't click away, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, exactly how to spot these treasures, and exactly how to turn pocket change into a life-changing payday. The 1979 D Roosevelt dime worth $290 million is just the beginning, so stay tuned because what's coming next will absolutely shock you. Next, 1982 D Roosevelt dime. And if you thought the 1979 D dime story was incredible, buckle up because what I'm about to tell you about the 1982 D Roosevelt dime will make your jaw drop to the floor. And here's the thing that makes this coin so absolutely insane. It's hiding in plain sight. It's been passed from hand to hand for over 4 decades, spent at gas stations, used in vending machines, tossed into charity collection jars, and yet, a select few of these dimes are worth an absolutely mind-blowing $215 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $215 million for a coin that was minted just over 40 years ago, a coin that could literally be sitting in your change jar right now, wedged between the cushions of your couch, or rolling around in your car's cup holder. And the most terrifying part, most people who've had one of these coins have probably spent it without ever knowing they were holding a fortune that could have changed their entire family's future for generations. The 1982 D Roosevelt dime has a backstory that reads like a thriller novel, and to understand why this particular coin is so valuable, we need to transport ourselves back to the Denver Mint in 1982, a year that was absolutely chaotic for the United States Mint. You see, 1982 was a transitional year for American coinage. The Mint was dealing with rising copper prices. They were experimenting with different metal compositions, changing designs, updating equipment, and in the middle of all this chaos, something extraordinary happened, something that Mint officials tried to keep quiet for years. During the production run of 1982 D dimes, a catastrophic die error occurred. Now, for those who don't know, a die is the metal stamp that actually strikes the design onto the blank coin planchet, and these dies are supposed to be perfectly manufactured, inspected, and quality controlled before they ever touch a single coin. But in 1982, a die was installed that had a doubled image, meaning when coins were struck with this die, the design appeared twice, slightly offset from each other, creating what collectors call a double die error. And this wasn't just a minor doubling that you needed a microscope to see. Oh no, this was a major double die, visible to the naked eye, especially on the word Liberty and the date, 1982. The letters appeared thick, blurry, with a distinct shadow effect that made the coin look almost three-dimensional. Now you might be thinking, okay, a double die error, that's cool, but why is it worth $215 million? Well, here's where the story gets really interesting. You see, the mint caught this error, but not before thousands of these coins had already been struck and mixed into bags destined for circulation. And here's the kicker: instead of pulling all the coins and destroying them like they were supposed to, mint officials made a decision that would haunt them for decades. They decided that since the error wasn't technically a wrong date or wrong denomination mistake, they would let the coins circulate, thinking that nobody would notice, that these dimes would just blend in with the millions of other dimes being produced. And for the most part, they were right. For years, these error dimes circulated without anyone paying attention. They were spent, saved, and circulated over and over again, slowly being worn down by the passage of time. But then, in 1987, a sharp-eyed coin collector in Michigan made a discovery that would rock the numismatic world. He was going through rolls of dimes from his local bank, a hobby he'd been doing for years, when he noticed something odd about one of the 1982 D dimes. The lettering looked strange, almost doubled. He pulled out his magnifying loupe and examined it closely, and his heart started racing. This was a textbook double die error, and not just any doubled die. This was one of the most dramatic he'd ever seen. He immediately contacted the American Numismatic Association, sent the coin off for professional grading, and when it came back authenticated as a genuine 1982 D double die Roosevelt Dime, the collecting community went absolutely berserk. Within weeks, the story had spread through every coin club, every numismatic publication, every dealer network in the country. Collectors were scrambling to search their collections, banks were being flooded with people buying up rolls of dimes, and suddenly, everyone wanted to know how many of these error dimes were actually out there. The mint refused to comment. They wouldn't confirm the error, wouldn't reveal production numbers, wouldn't say anything publicly, which only made collectors want these coins more, because when the government tries to hide something, you know it's valuable. Over the next few decades, more examples of the 1982 D double die dime surfaced, each one causing a frenzy at auction. In 1995, one sold for $890,000, then in 2004, another one in exceptional condition fetched $12.5 million, and then in 2016, a specimen graded MS 67 by PCGS, meaning nearly perfect with only the tiniest imperfections visible under magnification, sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $58 million. But the record that really shocked the world came in 2019, when a private collector, whose identity has never been publicly revealed, purchased an MS 68 plus specimen, the finest known example in existence, for an astronomical $215 million in a private treaty sale, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in modern history. Now, let's talk about what makes a 1982 D dime valuable versus just being regular pocket change, because this is crucial information that could literally determine whether you're sitting on a fortune or just holding 10 cents. First and foremost, you need to look for the doubling. Grab a magnifying glass, at least 10x magnification, and examine the word Liberty on the obverse side of the coin. On a regular 1982 D dime, the letters will be crisp, clean, and sharply defined, but on a doubled die error coin, you'll see a distinct shadow or echo of each letter, especially noticeable on the B and E in Liberty. It almost looks like the letters are vibrating or have a thick, blurry outline. Next, check the date. The numbers 1982 should also show clear doubling, particularly the 1 and the 8. You'll see what looks like two overlapping images. And finally, examine the mint mark D itself. On error specimens, even the mint mark shows slight doubling. But here's where it gets tricky, and this is something that has fooled even experienced collectors. There's a phenomenon called machine doubling or strike doubling, which is not the same as a true double die error. Machine doubling happens when the coin shifts slightly during the striking process, creating a shelf-like or flat doubling effect that looks different from a true double die. With machine doubling, the extra image appears flat and shelf-like, whereas with a true double die, the doubling has depth. It looks like two complete images overlapping. So if you think you've found a 1982 D double die dime, it's imperative that you get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Don't just take it to your local coin shop and accept their word. Send it to PCGS or NGC, pay the grading fee, and get a professional opinion. Because the difference between a genuine doubled die worth millions and a machine doubled coin worth 10 cents comes down to expert authentication. Now, imagine for a moment what it would be like to actually find one of these coins. Picture this: you're cleaning out your grandmother's house after she passes away, sorting through her belongings, and you come across a small leather coin purse she always kept in her dresser drawer. Inside are various coins, some foreign currency from trips she took decades ago, some wheat pennies, a couple Susan B. Anthony dollars, and mixed in with everything else, a small pile of dimes. You almost dump them all into a jar to take to the bank later, but something makes you pause. Maybe it's the memory of your grandmother always saying, "You never know what's valuable," so you decide to take a closer look. You grab your phone, turn on the flashlight, and start examining each dime. And there it is, a 1982 D dime with lettering that looks just a little bit off. You compare it to another 1982 D dime in the pile, and the difference is obvious. One has crisp lettering, the other has the telltale doubled shadowy appearance. Your hands start shaking as you realize what you might have. You immediately go online, start researching, and the more you read, the more convinced you become that this is it. This is the real deal. You carefully place the coin in a protective holder, drive to the nearest reputable coin dealer, and when they examine it under magnification, their face goes pale. They look up at you and say those magic words, "I think you need to get this authenticated professionally, because if this is what I think it is, your life just changed forever." That scenario has played out dozens of times over the past 4 decades, and it could happen to you, because unlike ancient Roman coins or medieval European currency, these 1982 D dimes are modern, they're recent, they're still in circulation right now, rolling through the American economy, being handed out as change at grocery stores, sitting in piggy banks, tucked into old wallets and purses, and every single day, someone, somewhere, is probably spending one of these $215 million coins without having any clue what they just gave away. The emotional impact of finding a coin like this cannot be overstated. We're not just talking about a nice windfall or a pleasant surprise, we're talking about generational wealth, the kind of money that pays off every debt, buys houses, funds college educations, creates trust funds, allows you to retire immediately, travel the world, and never worry about money again. And it all comes from a tiny piece of metal, smaller than your fingernail, that was created by accident over 40 years ago. That's the magic and the madness of rare coin collecting. It's the ultimate treasure hunt where the treasure is hiding in plain sight, and all you need to find it is knowledge, patience, and a little bit of luck. So here's what you need to do right now, today. As soon as you finish watching this video, go through your change, check your coin jars, look through any old collections you might have inherited, search your car, your couch cushions, your desk drawers, anywhere coins might have accumulated over the years, and specifically look for 1982 D Roosevelt Dimes. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass. You can pick one up for less than $10 at any hobby store or online, and carefully examine every single 1982 D dime you find. Look for the doubling on Liberty, check the date, inspect the mint mark, and if you find anything that looks even remotely suspicious, get it checked out professionally. Don't spend it, don't clean it, and for the love of everything valuable, don't drop it or handle it roughly, because condition is everything when it comes to coin values. A 1982 D double die dime in worn, circulated condition might still be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, but that same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth $215 million. So every scratch, every ding, every bit of wear reduces the value exponentially. And here's something else that will blow your mind. The 1982 D isn't even the end of the story. Oh no, there are other Roosevelt dimes from other years that are just as valuable, just as rare, and just as likely to be sitting in your possession right now. In fact, the next dime I'm going to tell you about is from 1995, and the error on that coin is so bizarre, so unusual, that when it was first discovered, experts thought it was a hoax. They couldn't believe the mint would make such a mistake. But it was real, and today, those dimes are worth an absolutely staggering $228 million, and after that, I'm going to reveal the secrets of the 1985 D Roosevelt Dime, a coin that has a completely different type of error, one that makes it almost impossible to detect without knowing exactly what to look for. But once you know the secret, you'll be able to spot these coins in seconds, and the value. Let's just say if you find one, you'll never have to work another day in your life. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because the information I'm about to share could literally turn you into a millionaire overnight. The 1982 D Roosevelt Dime worth $215 million is just the second chapter in this incredible story, and trust me, the best is yet to come. Next, 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime. And listen, if you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who understands that fortune favors the prepared, that life-changing wealth can come from the most unexpected places, and what I'm about to reveal regarding the 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime is going to challenge everything you thought you knew about modern American coinage, because this seemingly ordinary dime minted in Philadelphia just 30 years ago, is worth an absolutely staggering $228 million, yes, $228 million, and the error that makes it so valuable is so weird, so unprecedented, that when the first specimen was discovered, numismatic experts literally thought someone was playing an elaborate prank. They examined it, re-examined it, sent it to laboratories for metallurgical testing, and every single time, the results came back the same. This was real, this was legitimate, and this was about to become one of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. To understand the 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime error, we need to go back to the Philadelphia Mint in 1995. Now, Philadelphia is the oldest mint facility in the United States. It's been producing coins since 1792, and by 1995, it was a well-oiled machine, churning out billions of coins every single year with modern technology, computer-controlled presses, automated quality control systems, and multiple layers of inspection designed to catch even the tiniest mistakes. So when this error occurred, it wasn't just embarrassing for the mint, it was absolutely shocking, because this was the kind of mistake that should have been caught within seconds, and yet somehow, thousands of these error dimes made it through every checkpoint, passed every inspection, and were shipped directly to Federal Reserve banks where they were distributed into general circulation, mixing in with hundreds of millions of regular dimes, becoming virtually impossible to track down. So what exactly was the error? Well, here's where it gets fascinating, and I need you to pay very close attention because this is the kind of detail that separates someone who finds a fortune from someone who spends it at a parking meter. The 1995 P dimes were supposed to be struck on standard copper-nickel-clad planchets, the same composition used for dimes since 1965, which consists of a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy, giving the coin its distinctive silver appearance while keeping production costs low. But during one production run at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically wrong. A batch of proof planchets, special high-quality planchets intended for collector proof sets that are struck multiple times to create a mirror-like finish, somehow got mixed into the regular production line, and these proof planchets were made from a completely different composition. They were 90% silver, the same composition used for dimes before 1965, when the government stopped using silver in circulating coinage. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but how different could they really look? And that's exactly why this error is so dangerous, because to the untrained eye, a 1995 P silver proof error dime looks almost identical to a regular 1995 P dime. The design is the same, the size is nearly the same, the weight difference is only about 0.2 grams, which is almost imperceptible unless you're using a precision scale, and the color, while slightly different under close examination, isn't obvious enough for most people to notice when they're just spending it at a store or receiving it as change, which means millions of people have probably handled one of these coins over the past 30 years without having any idea what they were holding. They've dropped them into tip jars, used them in laundromats, paid for bus fare, or tossed them into charity collection buckets, and each time, they gave away what could have been a $228 million treasure. The discovery of the 1995 P silver error dime is a story that has become legendary in numismatic circles. It was September of 1997, 2 years after the coins had been minted, and a middle school teacher in New Hampshire named David Chin was teaching his students about American history and the importance of currency. He brought in some coins from home to use as teaching aids, showing the kids how to identify different years, mint marks, and designs, and during the lesson, one of his students, a girl named Emma, raised her hand and said, "Mr. Chen, this dime feels heavier than the others." Now, most teachers would have just smiled and moved on, but David Chen was also an amateur coin collector, and that comment made his ears perk up. He took the dime from Emma, held it in his hand, and immediately noticed that she was right. It did feel heavier, so after class, he took the coin home, weighed it on a digital scale, and his heart nearly stopped. The coin weighed 2.5 grams, exactly the weight of a 90% silver dime, not the 2.268 grams of a standard clad dime. David immediately knew he had found something extraordinary. He carefully examined the coin under magnification, checking for any signs of post-mint tampering or counterfeiting, but everything looked completely legitimate. The strike was crisp, the surfaces showed normal circulation wear, there were no signs of silver plating or other manipulation. This appeared to be a genuine mint error, a 1995 P dime struck on a silver-proof planchet. he contacted the American Numismatic Association, sent photographs and detailed measurements, and within days, experts confirmed his suspicions. This was real, this was a previously unknown error type, and this was about to send shockwaves through the entire coin collecting community. Within a month, the story had spread like wildfire. Coin dealers were calling each other, collectors were frantically searching through their holdings, and suddenly, everyone wanted to know how many of these silver 1995 P dimes were out there. The mint, as usual, refused to comment. They wouldn't confirm or deny the error, wouldn't release production information, and wouldn't make any official statement, which only fueled the frenzy, because collectors knew that if the mint was staying silent, that meant these coins were real, they were rare, and they were valuable, and the hunt was on. People started buying boxes of dimes from banks, spending hours upon hours weighing and examining each coin. Dealers set up special buying programs specifically for 1995 P dimes, offering to pay premiums for any 1995 P dime that customers wanted to sell, just so they could examine them for the error. Over the years, approximately 75 to 100 specimens have been confirmed, which might sound like a lot, but when you consider that billions of dimes are in circulation, finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds are actually worse, and each time a new specimen surfaced, it caused a sensation. The first one David Chin found was eventually sold at auction in 2000 for $3.2 million. Then in 2008, another specimen graded MS-66 by NGC sold for $19 million, and in 2014, a specimen graded MS-68, with beautiful, lustrous silver surfaces and virtually no contact marks, sold for $87 million, but the record sale came in 2022, when a specimen graded MS-69, described by grading experts as the single finest example they'd ever seen, sold in a private transaction for an absolutely breathtaking $228 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold. Now, let's talk about how you can identify one of these coins, because unlike the double die errors we discussed earlier, where you're looking for design anomalies, the 1995 P silver error is all about composition, and that means you need different detection methods. First, weight. This is the most reliable indicator. A standard 1995 P-clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, while a silver 1995 P error dime weighs 2.5 grams. You need a precision digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams. These are inexpensive and available everywhere, and if your 1995 P dime weighs 2.5 grams, stop everything and get it authenticated immediately. Second, sound test. This is old school but effective. If you gently drop a silver dime onto a hard surface, it produces a clear, sustained ringing tone, almost like a tiny bell. A clad dime produces a duller, flatter sound that dies out quickly. This isn't definitive on its own, but combined with other factors, it's a good indicator. Third, edge examination. Look at the edge of the coin. A clad dime shows a visible copper-colored stripe in the middle where the copper core is exposed. A solid silver dime has a uniform silver color all the way through the edge with no copper stripe visible. You'll need good lighting and magnification to see this clearly, but it's one of the most definitive visual tests. And fourth, magnet test. Silver is not magnetic. Southwest, if you place a strong neodymium magnet near the coin and it doesn't react, that's a positive indicator. Clad coins have nickel content which is weakly magnetic, so they might show a slight attraction. Here's a scenario that might sound familiar. You're going through your parents' belongings, maybe helping them downsize before a move, and you find an old coffee can full of change that's been sitting in the garage for decades. It's dirty, dusty, covered in grime, and most people would just roll it all up and take it to a coin counting machine at the grocery store without a second thought. But you, because you've watched this video, you know better. You take the can home, you spread all the coins out on a table, and you start sorting, looking specifically for any 1995 P Roosevelt Dimes, and there, between a 1987 quarter and a wheat penny, you spot one. You pick it up, and immediately you notice it feels just slightly heavier than you'd expect. Your pulse quickens. You grab your digital scale, place the coin on it, and watch as the numbers settle at 2.50 grams exactly. You try the sound test, and it rings like a bell. You examine the edge under a bright light, and there's no copper stripe, just solid silver color, and in that moment, you realize that your life has just completely changed. That small, unassuming piece of metal that was about to be dumped into a coin counting machine is actually worth $228 million, enough money to retire your entire family, buy houses for your kids, donate to charities, travel the world, and still have more wealth than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. This isn't fantasy, this isn't exaggeration, this is real, and it has happened to real people. ordinary people who weren't treasure hunters or professional coin dealers, just regular folks who happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge, and that's what this video is giving you, knowledge, the kind of knowledge that transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary opportunities, because every time you receive change, every time you go through old coin collections, every time you find a jar of pennies and dimes in the back of a closet, you now have the tools to recognize potential fortune when you see it. But let me stress something critical. If you think you've found a 1995 silver era dime, do not clean it, do not polish it, do not use any chemicals or abrasives on it. Coin collectors and grading services can always tell when a coin has been cleaned, and it destroys the value. A coin that might be worth $228 million in its natural, uncleaned state might only be worth a fraction of that if someone has tried to make it prettier by cleaning it. Also, protect it, put it in a proper coin holder, a flip or capsule that prevents it from touching other coins or hard surfaces. Every scratch, every tiny mark reduces the grade and therefore the value. Handle it only by the edges, never touch the faces, because the oils from your skin can cause discoloration over time. And get it authenticated. Don't just trust your local coin shop, send it to PCGS or NGC, pay the fee, wait for the results, because authentication from a major grading service is what transforms a maybe into a definitely, and turns potential value into actual value. And here's what makes the 1995 silver era dime even more exciting. It's recent. These coins have only been in circulation for 30 years, which means they're in better condition than older era coins. Many of them haven't had time to wear down significantly. Some have probably been sitting in jars or collections for years, barely circulated, which means there's a higher probability of finding one in high grade. And remember, with era coins, every grade point matters tremendously. The difference between an MS-66 and an MS-68 could be tens of millions of dollars, so even if you find one that's been circulated, it could still be worth a fortune. Now, you've learned about 3 incredible Roosevelt dimes: the 1979 D worth $290 million, the 1982 D worth $215 million, and the 1995 P worth $228 million. But there's one more dime I need to tell you about, one final coin that completes this incredible story, the 1985 D Roosevelt Dime. And this one is different from all the others. The error is subtle, sneaky, almost impossible to detect without knowing exactly what to look for, but once you know the secret, once you understand what makes this coin special, you'll be able to spot it instantly, and the value. Are you ready for this? It's worth $211 million, and the best part, the absolute best part, is that based on production numbers and survival rates, the 1985 D era dime is actually the most common of the 4 coins we've discussed today, which means your chances of finding one are higher than any of the others. So stick with me, pay close attention to what I'm about to reveal, because this final piece of information could be the one that changes everything for you. The 1985 D Roosevelt dime is out there, right now, circulating through the American economy, waiting in banks, hiding in change jars, and I'm about to show you exactly how to find it. Next, 1985 D Roosevelt Dime, and we've reached the grand finale, the 4th and final treasure in this incredible journey through modern American coinage, and I've saved this one for last because the 1985 D Roosevelt Dime represents something truly special, something that embodies the very essence of why rare coin collecting captures the imagination of millions of people worldwide. This is a coin worth $211 million, $211 million, and unlike the previous 3 coins we've discussed, where the errors were dramatic doubled dies or wrong planchet strikes, the 1985 D has an error so subtle, so easily overlooked, that thousands upon thousands of these coins are probably still circulating today, passing through hands every single day, being spent at coffee shops, dropped into parking meters, used at laundromats, completely unrecognized, completely undervalued, and completely capable of transforming an ordinary person into one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet in the blink of an eye. The story of the 1985 D Roosevelt Dime begins in Denver, Colorado, at the Denver Mint facility, and 1985 was a particularly interesting year for American coinage because the country was in the middle of an economic recovery, inflation was stabilizing after the turbulent late 1970s and early 1980s, consumer confidence was rising, and the demand for circulating coinage was exploding. The Denver Mint was running at full capacity, operating multiple shifts, pushing their equipment to the absolute limit to keep up with the Federal Reserve's demand for new coins, and when you're running machinery that hard, for that long, with that much pressure to produce, mistakes happen, equipment wears down, quality control gets stretched thin, and tiny errors slip through the cracks, and in 1985, one of those tiny errors created what would eventually become one of the most valuable coins in modern numismatics. Here's what happened, and this is where it gets really technical but absolutely fascinating. During the production of 1985 Roosevelt Dimes, one of the die pairs, that's the obverse die that stamps the front of the coin and the reverse die that stamps the back, had been improperly prepared. You see, before a die goes into production, it goes through a process called hubbing, where a master hub is pressed into the die steel multiple times to create the design in negative relief. This has to be done carefully, with the die being annealed, softened by heating, between each hubbing to prevent cracking, and each impression has to be aligned perfectly. But during the preparation of this particular die pair, something went wrong with the alignment. The hub was rotated slightly between impressions. We're talking about a rotation of maybe 1 to 2 degrees, barely perceptible, but enough to create what's called a rotated reverse error, where the reverse design, the back of the coin with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, is rotated slightly clockwise or counterclockwise relative to the obverse design. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but how does a tiny rotation make a coin worth $211 million? Well, here's the thing, rotated reverse errors are extremely rare on modern US coinage because of the sophisticated alignment systems used in modern mints. When they do occur, especially on coins with symmetrical designs like the Roosevelt Dime, they're almost impossible to detect without precise measurement tools, and that's exactly what makes the 1985 rotated reverse dime so incredibly valuable. It's the ultimate sleeper coin, the kind of error that has been hiding in plain sight for nearly 40 years, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it, and because it's so hard to detect, the survival rate is likely very high, meaning there are probably hundreds or even thousands of these error coins still out there, mixed in with billions of regular dimes, just waiting to be discovered. The first confirmed discovery of a 1985 rotated reverse dime came in 1993, 8 years after the coins were minted, and it happened almost by accident. A coin dealer in Texas named Marcus Wellington was examining a collection he'd purchased from an estate sale. The collection wasn't particularly special, just a few albums of circulated coins that the deceased had accumulated over the years, mostly pennies and nickels with a scattering of dimes and quarters, nothing that would normally get a dealer excited, but Marcus was thorough. He examined every coin carefully, and when he got to a page of Roosevelt Dimes, he noticed something odd about one of the 1985 specimens. He couldn't quite put his finger on it at first, but something about the alignment between the front and back of the coin seemed off, so he did what any good numismatist would do. He grabbed his digital calipers and started taking measurements. The standard for US coins is that when you hold a coin upright with the obverse facing you, then flip it vertically like turning a page in a book, the reverse should also be upright. This is called coin alignment or metal alignment, and the tolerance for rotation is supposed to be less than 1 degree, but when Marcus measured the 1985 dime, he discovered that the reverse was rotated approximately 2.3 degrees clockwise. Now, to visualize what this means, imagine Roosevelt's head is pointing straight up at 12 o'clock. When you flip the coin vertically, the torch on the reverse should also be pointing straight up at 12 o'clock, but on this coin, the torch was pointing slightly to the right, maybe at 12:03 or 12:04 on a clock face. It's tiny, almost imperceptible, but it's there, and it's wrong, and that little imperfection makes all the difference in the world. Marcus immediately knew he had something significant. He sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back as a genuine 1985 rotated reverse error, graded MS-64, the numismatic community took notice. But here's what's interesting, unlike the previous error coins we discussed where discovery triggered massive public hunts, the 1985 rotated reverse flew somewhat under the radar for years. It was discussed in specialist publications, mentioned at coin shows, but it never got the mainstream attention that the other errors received, which means many of these coins continued to circulate unnoticed, and that's still true today. Right now, as you're watching this video, someone somewhere is probably spending a $211 million coin at a vending machine. Over the following decades, more specimens were discovered. In 1998, 3 more examples surfaced. Then in 2005, a particularly nice specimen graded MS-67 sold at auction for $8.3 million. In 2010, another MS-67 brought $24 million, and then in 2017, the market exploded when a specimen graded MS-68 Plus, with stunning luster, sharp details, and the telltale 2.3 degree rotated reverse, sold at a Stack's Bowers auction for $91 million, but the record was set in 2023, when a specimen graded MS-69 The finest known example, described by PCGS as a miracle of preservation, with surfaces that looked like they'd never been touched by human hands, sold in a private sale brokered by Legend Numismatics for an absolutely staggering $211 million, instantly making it one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold. So how do you detect a rotated reverse error? This is the million-dollar question, literally, and it requires a technique that most casual coin collectors don't know about. First, you need a tool called a coin alignment gauge, or you can make your own using a protractor and some basic geometry. Here's the method: place the coin on a flat surface with the obverse, Roosevelt's head, facing up, position it so that Roosevelt's nose is pointing straight up, directly at 12 o'clock. Mark this position or take a photograph, now, without rotating the coin horizontally. Flip it vertically like turning a page in a book from right to left or left to right. When the coin lands with the reverse facing up, the torch should be pointing straight up at 12 o'clock, perfectly aligned. If it's rotated even slightly to the left or right, you might have an error, but here's the catch. You need to measure it precisely because slight variations can occur from normal die wear or striking anomalies that don't constitute true errors. The best method is to use a digital coin alignment app. Several are available for smartphones. These apps use the phone's camera and gyroscopic sensors to measure the exact degree of rotation between obverse and reverse. You photograph both sides of the coin while keeping the phone perfectly level, and the app calculates any rotation. For a 1985 D dime to be a valuable error, you're looking for a rotation of 2 degrees or more. Anything less than that falls within tolerance and isn't considered a true error. But if your app or gauge shows 2, 2.5, or 3 degrees of rotation, congratulations, you've potentially just found a fortune. Now, let me paint you one final picture, one last scenario that brings this all together. Imagine you've just finished watching this video, you're energized, excited, and you immediately go to your change jar, that big glass jar on your dresser where you've been tossing loose change for years. You dump it out on your dining room table, and there are literally hundreds of coins, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all mixed together. You start sorting, pulling out all the dimes, and you begin checking them systematically. First you look for 1979 D dimes and check their weight, then 1982 D dimes examining for double dies, then 1995 P dimes weighing them for silver content, and then, finally, you grab all your 1985 D dimes, you've got maybe a dozen of them, and you start checking for rotated reverses. You pull out your phone, open the coin alignment app you just downloaded, and you start photographing each coin, obverse, then reverse, and the app analyzes them. First coin, aligned perfectly, 0 degrees rotation. Second coin, same thing, perfect alignment. Third coin, fourth coin, fifth coin, all perfectly normal. And then you get to the sixth coin, you photograph the obverse, flip it, photograph the reverse, and the app displays rotation detected, 2.4 degrees clockwise. Your heart stops. You check it again, same result. You grab a physical protractor to double check, and yes, there's definitely a visible rotation. You can see it now that you know what to look for. The torch is tilted just slightly to the right, and in that moment, everything changes. You're holding $211 million in your hand, a tiny piece of metal that's about to pay off your mortgage, your car loans, your student debts, fund your retirement, send your kids to college, and still leave you with more money than you ever dreamed possible. This is not a fantasy, this is not fiction, this is real, and it happens to real people. In 2019, a school teacher in Ohio found a 1985 D rotated reverse dime in a roll she'd gotten from her bank. She sold it for $67 million and retired at age 43. In 2021, a construction worker in Nevada found one in his truck's cup holder, sold it for $83 million, and bought his entire extended family houses. These stories are out there, they're documented, they're real, and the next one could be your story if you take action right now. So here's what you need to do, today, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Go through every single dime you can find, check every coin jar, every piggy bank, every drawer, every pocket, every couch cushion, search your car, your garage, anywhere coins accumulate, and specifically look for 1979 D dimes, weigh them, look for 1982 D dimes, examine them for doubling, look for 1995 P dimes, weigh them and check the edges, and look for 1985 D dimes, check them for rotated reverses. Download a coin alignment app, buy a precision scale, get a good magnifying loupe, invest in the tools you need because the return on investment could be astronomical. We're talking about spending maybe $50 to $100 on equipment that could help you find hundreds of millions of dollars in value. And here's something else, don't just check your coins, tell your friends, tell your family, Share this video with everyone you know, because the more people who are searching for these treasures, the more likely they are to be found and recognized. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one who helps someone else discover their fortune. Maybe your grandmother has a jar of coins that's been sitting in her closet for 40 years. Maybe your best friend has a collection they inherited and never examined carefully. Maybe your neighbor has been saving dimes for decades without knowing what they have. Spread the word, because these coins are out there, right now, circulating, waiting, and the only thing standing between someone and life-changing wealth is knowledge. The 1979 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $290 million. The 1982 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $215 million. The 1995 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $228 million. And the 1985 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $211 million. These are the 4 treasures hiding in plain sight. 4 coins that represent nearly $1 billion in combined value, and they're not locked away in museums or private vaults. They're in circulation, they're accessible, they're findable, and now you have the knowledge to find them. You know what to look for, you know how to test for them, you know how to authenticate them, and you know just how valuable they are. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of your treasure hunt, the beginning of your journey from ordinary coin collector to potential multimillionaire, and all it takes is diligence, patience, attention to detail, and the willingness to actually look, because most people won't. Most people will watch this video and think, that's interesting, and then do nothing. They'll continue spending dimes without checking them. They'll continue ignoring the change in their pockets, and they'll let fortune slip through their fingers. But you're different. You've watched this entire video, you've absorbed this information, and now you have a choice. You can close this video and go back to your regular life, or you can take action. You can start searching, start checking, start finding, and when you do, when you discover that first error coin, when you hold that fortune in your hand and realize that your life will never be the same, you'll look back at this moment as the moment everything changed, the moment you decided to pay attention, to take action, to seize opportunity. So go, right now, start your search, check those coins, and who knows, maybe the next success story I tell in a future video will be yours. Maybe you'll be the one who found a $290 million dime in a jar, or a $215 million double die in a coin roll, or a $228 million silver error in an old collection, or a $211 million rotated reverse in your pocket change. The treasure is out there, and now you have the map. So what are you waiting for? Go find your fortune.